Well, welcome to St. Mark. It is great to have you join us on a beautiful day God has given us, whether you're joining at our Green Bay campus, De Pere campus, or online. It is marvelous to have you as we continue a series that we've entitled 20 Answers Offered. It's really based on the top 20 questions Christians hope no one ever asks them. And we're going to look at them biblically so you can answer them and hope, and do the best you can. Okay? It's great to have you here. The World Watch List is Open Doors' annual ranking of the top 50 nations where Christians are underneath extreme persecution. Here is the current map of persecution for 2024. Take a look. To give you a little more detail, here are the top 3 countries in which Christians are persecuted. Number 1 is, no surprise, North Korea. Number 2 is Somalia. Number 3 is Liberia. Such incidences often cause people to come up with a very important question. It's called the question or the problem of evil. And it usually shows itself in our culture in a number of different ways, different questions like this. How can a loving God allow a 7-year-old girl to die from cancer? Or, how can God allow Christians to be persecuted and executed in Ethiopia right now? Or, how can a good God allow a little 3-year-old boy from Manitowoc to disappear? These all cause some people to assume that because I see evil and injustice in our world, that removes the possibility of an existence of a God. That is actually the number one issue or question that stops most Christians in their tracks. Rather than sweep that issue under the rug, the Bible is very straightforward about talking about the experiences people have of anxiety and suffering due to evil and injustice in this world. In what are often called the wisdom books, think of the book of Job, most of the Psalms, and the book of Ecclesiastes, it often talks about how people experience hurt and anxiety because of evil in our world and how they're confused about that sometimes. For example, in the book of Job, it says this, "Yet man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward." The Psalms certainly talk a lot about suffering and evil in our world. In fact, Psalm 22, which is written hundreds of years before Jesus walked on this earth, quotes what Jesus is going to say on the cross as he's suffering there, making payment for our sins. Here's the quote. my God, why have you forsaken me? My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. In the ancient world, people expected to suffer in this life. In the ancient world, 1 out of every 5 children did not make it to 1 year old. In the ancient world, only about half of all the children had a 10th birthday. So the people in the ancient world, they knew how to handle suffering more than we tend to. Tim Keller, once writing about this very subject, pointed out that what's different today is not that we suffer more than others. With the advent of technology, medicine, anesthesia, and so on, we have it way better than anybody else has ever had it. No, our problem is that we're haughty by nature. And we actually think the universe is created for our benefit. We believe that it is self, not God, not faith, not community, that is to be the number one priority in life. And so, we think that we're so smart today that not only can we figure out the universe, but we ought to be able to control it. And when that doesn't seem to happen, or we question that, what happens then is we will go ahead and people will assume that because there's evil and because there's injustice, there can't possibly be a God. I'd like to challenge that assumption by drawing your attention to certain things I'd like you to consider when we talk about this whole question or problem of evil. Here's the first one. The existence of pain does not negate love. We see this maxim in medicine. A surgeon will allow there to be pain in a patient because it'll bring about healing. Now, does that surgeon want to inflict pain? No. But he knows that there's good on the other side. A counselor will sometimes have people actually focus on bad memories in their past in order to heal their life in the future. Does that counselor want to inflict pain? No. But she knows that there's good on the other side. Parents are a gleaming example of this maxim. Some of you, like me, have parents, and sometimes parents will go ahead and decide to move the entire family to another city, another state, maybe even another country. And when that happens, especially when the kids are young and teens, that can be hard. Sometimes those children will think that this is the worst suffering ever, and you know, it's never going to be good again. I'm going to have a bad life all my life. They actually think that somehow their parents don't like them, and their life as they know it is now over. But because their parents make that decision doesn't mean their parents hate them, doesn't mean their parents stopped loving them. In fact, it is very likely the welfare of that child that weighed heavily into the decision to move. If parents' reasons aren't always fully grasped by their children, why are you surprised that God's reasons for allowing some things into your life aren't fully grasped by you? This is a biblical truth. In that famous passage in Isaiah, it says this. God says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." If God is as great as Christians say he is, then not always fully grasping why God allows certain things in our lives should be expected in the lives of Jesus followers. Here's another truth I'd like you to consider. The existence of evil and suffering are the result of the fall. The original creation was very good. There was no sin, no hardship, no injustice, no pain, no death, no evil. So how did those things come to be? Bible tells us things went downhill quickly after creation because Adam and Eve decided to exercise their God-given free will and play God and disobey God. Now at this point, some people, even inside the church world, say, well, why couldn't God have created Adam and Eve and all people with the ability not to sin, thus taking evil off the table? Well, if God created us that way, we wouldn't be truly human, would we? God would then have to create us to be robots who are programmed to love him and obey him. That kind of thinking, that theme was actually the theme of a very famous movie way back when. It was called The Stepford Wives. How many of you have heard of the Stepford movie, the Stepford Wives movie? Okay? It was first done in the 70s and then redone in the 2000s. Here's the theme. Spoiler alert. It takes place in a nice suburb, and what happens in that suburb, somehow, they replace all of the real flesh and blood wives with identical-looking robot wives who always smile at their husbands, always make their favorite meals, always laugh at their lame jokes, always schedule their favorite events, and always keep their husbands happy. Husbands, can you imagine that? Gentlemen, would you want that? Would you want your real life, flesh and blood, sometimes challenging wife To be turned into an identical looking robot? Would you want that? No. Your answer should be no, right? That can't happen anyways, folks, right? You're not doing yourself by saying no. Yeah, you're not helping yourself at all. I say all of that to point out this truth, that especially when it comes to loving people and loving our God, that love can't be programmed. It has to be freely given. God wanted all people from Adam and Eve to love him and show that love for him by striving to obey his word because they know what he's done for them. That's why God created Adam and Eve and you and me with a free will to be used in a God-pleasing way. That's what God has wanted. That's what God always wants. There's a lot written about this whole gift of free will. For example, Norm Geisler, who writes a lot about this, said this: forced love is rape, and God is not a divine rapist. He will not do anything to coerce their decision. But you understand, a free choice can always mean you can have a wrong choice too. J.B. Phillips pointed this out when he said, evil is inherent in the risky gift of free will. Norm Geisler, again, probably sums up this truth with the most famous quote on this subject. Here it is. Whereas God created the facts of freedom, human beings perform the acts of freedom. God made evil possible. Creatures make it actual. Ever since Adam and Eve made evil actual in our world, it's been passed down to every generation since then. And then it's even impacted the world in which we live with what we call natural disasters like tsunamis and tornadoes and floods and so on. That's why every single person born is born spiritually dead, spiritually hostile toward God, and spiritually ignorant. Children are not born with a clean slate. That is not true. Everyone is born in need of a Savior, headed toward hell, which they deserve, which we deserve, in need of a rescuer from hell. Now here's the good news. In heaven, there aren't going to be any police sirens or tornado sirens. Revelation chapter 21 says this: and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. Literally, he will tabernacle with them. They will be his God, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Here's a third truth I want you to consider, and it's this. What awaits you on the other side will thrill you. The New Testament continually tells us that we can't even imagine what heaven is going to be like. Paul says this: therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. Remember, these words were written down not by a guy sitting in a nice leather chair in a corner office on the 67th floor of a really nice building. These are written down by the Apostle Paul, who was beaten and whipped and stoned and shipwrecked several times and bitten by a snake and persecuted, imprisoned, chained, executed, and didn't have much in life. And how does he describe his life? Light and momentary. Let me make this really concrete. I learned several years ago of an example to make this concrete, for you to understand how light and momentary this world is compared to our real home in heaven. And it's a little girl on a ski hill. She's about 8 years old, and she's got to go down this big ski jump. And there's a before time for her, and then there's an after time. And that represents what you're going to feel like when you get transferred to heaven one day. Take a look at the video.
I'll be fine. Have fun. I'll do it. Well, here. goes something, I guess. Oh. Okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Just keep it straight and you'll be fine. Do
Okay.
the same thing you do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
Little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
It's a
fun.
bigger 20.
Go ahead. You got this.
I got it.
It's fine. You'll be fine.
Okay. Here
The longer you wait, you'll be more scared.
I go. Yeah! Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa!
That's called death. But Jesus said those who trust in him will never taste death. When it comes your time to say, "Here I go," the next place you land is in glory. Know that right now, though, reality is you're on this side of the ski jump. And I know if you're anything like me, some days you wish that the suffering and the injustice and the pain would just go away. It would be erased. But Paul tells us, no, that suffering and pain isn't going to get erased. It's going to get redeemed by Jesus forever. In fact, one person said, the redemption of all things through all eternity will be more glorious than you can possibly imagine. So whatever you're going through, don't lose heart. You lose a child. You lose a spouse. You are heartbroken. You go through a divorce. You are lonely. You're fired. You're troubled about something in your past. You've been abused. Your physical health is diminishing quickly. For those listening to me right now who are suffering, please realize you're still on this side of the jump box. You are still on this side of the jump. There's an eternal weight of glory that awaits you when someday you take that jump, and you all will. And then for the rest of eternity, you're going to be joining us saying, light and momentary, Jesus has redeemed it all. But in the meantime, we gather together and help one another by carrying one another's burdens. That's why regular gathering for worship every week is of so vital importance. It can't be just something you put on your calendar. It has to be the basis of your calendar. That's why small group Bible studies, we call them Oasis groups here, are so important, because you do life better in circles, not just in rows once in a while, but in circles. How many 2 a.m. friends do you have that you can call in a disaster who aren't related to you? I posit you should have 5 of them. To the parents, especially the dads, the shepherds of your family, this is why your family devotions are so important. Because all of those things make sure you put this life in the right perspective. light and momentary, compared to the one you're going to experience forever. Listen to the words of the one who redeems all suffering and who has conquered death through his own suffering and death. Jesus spoke these famous words. In this world you will have trouble. You will have it. But take heart. I have overcome the world.